All right, so today we have Dr. Turk, our psychologist here for Richmond Athletics. One, thank you for kind of taking time and introducing yourself. I know this is a new position for our athletic department, and it's been your first year here. And I think what's really cool, and I kind of want to give you a shout out, is that you also are SAC Support Staff of the Year in your first year here at Richmond. So obviously, like, big applause to you. And I think it shows, your impact that you have for our department, and I'm excited to dive in. But before we get there, tell us a little background about yourself.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited to be here for sure, and excited about that award. Didn't know that was coming. So I am a licensed clinical psychologist. I grew up in an athletic family, so grew up with parents and brothers who played sports, college sports. And I grew up playing lacrosse and volleyball my entire life, and then played volleyball in college. And right after college, went into a master's program, continued coaching volleyball at that time, and did a master's in clinical counseling psychology, and then went straight into my doctorate for counseling psychology. So most of my work was a generalist training. Like, I worked in basically every setting and with every mental health concern. And then in my last year of training, I specialized in working with student athletes, those with eating concerns and survivors of trauma. So those are sort of my specialty areas, but since I'm a generalist, I can do work with just about anybody.
Right. And I think that's what's so important, is that you can. I think that from what we've seen on our team with swimming and diving, but I'm sure with other teams, is that you've been able to provide support in many different avenues. If you wouldn't mind, kind of like walk me through, what are you doing with teams? What are you doing with athletes here at Richmond right now?
Yeah, it's like you said, it's a variety of things. So the athletics department really wanted the focus of this brand new position to be on supporting the mental health of our student athletes. And so I think that's why they wanted to bring somebody in with a mental health background and generalist. So a lot of the work that I do is mental health based. So I can, like I said, work with any mental health issues with individuals one-on-one. But I also have that experience with student athletes. So I do a lot of sports performance work. So people coming in for performance anxiety issues, or, really struggling with their mentality in a game, or mental toughness, or confidence issues, or, anything like that. So it's a whole range of things. Again, like I said, I see a lot of mental health stuff. So anxiety, depression, relationship issues, suicide ideation, eating concerns, all of the above. Right. But I guess there's not like a typical situation.
Right.
So
You're always getting new stuff.
Yeah. Oh, every day is different for me, which I love.
Right.
But a lot of my one-on-one work is more based in that individual person, what they're going through, whether it be sport-based or whether it be something else. And honestly, what we see is the combination of the two tends to be, like, once we start working on mental health, performance tends to improve. Or once we start working through whatever's going on with performance, typically find, like, there's something else going on in life that's pretty stressful that maybe is impacting that.
So they tie, like, pretty well together.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. They go hand in hand. And so that's a lot of individual stuff. And then, like you mentioned, I also do a bunch of group stuff with teams. And that can look different depending on whatever team I'm working with. Mm-hmm. And so that's, with some teams, I meet with them first, and then I create sort of like a program. And I go through that program. Maybe it's a 4-week program, an 8-week program, based on their individual team's needs. And some teams I just meet with one time, and maybe I do a training on building confidence or mental health or whatever.
Right. That's cool. And I think one thing, as obviously, like you just said, like, so many different types of support, whether it's teams, whether it's just individual student athletes. But how does this process start, or how does a student athlete, not use you, but get involved and able to, use your resources and, your experiences?
Yeah, I think that's one of the really cool things about the way they created this position, is they wanted me located, even though I'm through the counseling center, they wanted me located in the athletics facility where our athletes spend most of their time. So ways that students can get involved with me, honestly, a lot of them just pop by my office when my door is open, stick their head in, say, hey, I've been meaning to get scheduled. Can we set up a time? Right. And sometimes that actually works the best, because their schedules are crazy, my schedule's crazy, so we can both just pull them up at that time and find something that works. Or our student athletes will reach out to me by email, which my email's, published for them, and all of the coaches have my email. I also try to meet with each team at the beginning of every year, just so they can put a face to a name. I know therapy can sort of be this like scary thing that people aren't always sure about. So just to be that person that they now have a connection to, can meet with. So it can happen a lot of ways, but either reaching out to me directly, stopping by directly, or to be honest, student athletes could also go over to CAPS if they wanted to. So they don't have to see me if they want some more distance from athletics.
Okay, cool. And I think that, like, one thing you said is putting a face to your name. And I think that one thing that I've noticed is that, you're around, like people see you through the hallways. And I think that's an important part of any support staff, anybody at Richmond is, I think that athletes want to feel comfortable nowadays and get to know who you are. And I think that you've done a good job with that. And it makes sense. I think you go to team meetings at the beginning of the year, and I think, obviously, you were SAC support staff of the year, so people know who you are and obviously using you, which is great. My next question, and this isn't just just towards swimming or diving, not towards just Richmond athletics, but I think a lot of what we're talking about is, having, mindfulness and practicing, meditation to create that mindfulness. What are the benefits of, a healthy mindset or practicing mindfulness, no matter where you are, whether you're competing right now, whether you're an alumni or you're done doing that, or you're just getting started in your athletic career, like what are the benefits of mindfulness?
Right. Yeah. There are so many benefits to mindfulness. I think it's tough because a lot of people are either really drawn to that word or really put off by that word. And so people oftentimes think of this picture of mindfulness as like, sitting on top of a mountain meditating, which it really can be. But for me, so much of it is, and I think the most important aspect for our athletes is like the present moment, like what's happening in this moment right now. And that is so crucial for participation, for, excelling at your highest level. Because if you're spending so much time focused on, you're worried about what happens next or the mistake you just made, it makes it a lot harder to succeed at things. And so really that's where I try to hone in, is let's give people the skills around how you bring yourself back to this moment, how you take the next step forward, how you're thinking in a more positive way, to be able to really just function at your highest level. And that goes for athletes, it goes for anybody. Think about in your daily life, like how many times do we get distracted by this thing I have to do for next week, or something that happened yesterday that I'm really stressed about.
Right.
So it has an impact on us. So that's where I think mindfulness, I think so many ways it comes in, and that's a very simple way of maybe saying that. But that's where I like to start. Yeah,
no, totally. And like I said, I think that, mindfulness, and obviously that's a word that we're fixating on, but it's this practice for everybody. And I think it's so cool that at Richmond is that we can, you can, teach us at a young age, and hopefully, make it I always call a life skill. And it's not something that you just use for athletics, but for down the road. My last question for you, and this isn't having, much to do with what you're doing, but, what makes Richmond special? You've been here for a year now. And so you're kind of fresh. You kind of have that first, perspective. But what does make Richmond special in your eyes?
Yeah, to me, it's the community. It's so different from most other places that I've been at before, and especially the community. Again, we're in athletics, so within athletics, but the amount of connection between people, the connection to alumni, the just amount of resources that are available to our students is wild. Obviously Richmond's a cool place to be, but the amount of support that our students and student athletes have at Richmond is unlike anywhere else I've ever been. And so I think you can't ask for much more in an experience than being supported in just about every way you can think of throughout it.
Right. That's cool. I think that's for sure the one word that I think is, that community that we have at Richmond. Well, that's it. Thank you for kind of painting a picture of, your support for our athletes and, I think our community in general. And again, I think our athletes recognize it. I know us at Swimming and Diving, we really appreciate the work you've done for us. And thank you again for taking some time to talk to us today.
Of course. I think it's so important to do this kind of thing. And honestly, for me, it's getting the word out there to not just our student athletes, but everybody. There's so much stigma around mental health and people seeking help. And so that's one of the things I think we're starting to, within our athletics department, starting to get rid of, but on a wider scale, making it okay for people to get the help that they need and realize it's actually a strength to do that.
100%. 100%. Well, thank you. Stay healthy, stay safe. And we will hopefully see you on campus soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.